We're more than halfway through October, and here in the low desert, we're still having temperatures of like 101 up through 103 degrees. But the good thing is that my garden is not feeling it because of the shade cloth. And not all of my garden has shade cloth over it, but I have noticed that the parts that are protected are growing so much better. So I wanted to show you a few of the things that I have growing. The first thing is tomatoes are going crazy with production. Even though we're still in the hundreds, look at this, I have tomatoes setting. Oh, and this one has blossom end rot. I also realized that I needed to cut back on the water. So now I'm having to water less because it's not as hot anymore, which is good for me because that saves on my water bills. But look, I need to do a better job of trellising these, but that's also been a little bit difficult because if you remember, the rat moved some of my tags, so I didn't know what was determinate and what was indeterminate or dwarf or semi-dwarf. So everything's mixed up, and some of these I feel like I definitely got wrong and they're gonna wind up getting crazy huge. But some of them, like these dwarf tomatoes, are not only flowering but setting fruit. Lots and lots of fruit. And the same thing goes for my tomatillos. Oh, which is so exciting. Also, my sweet potatoes were growing, but they were growing kind of steadily. And now they're just exploding with growth. This is all just one container of sweet potato. Something else that I've noticed is the trees have put out completely new foliage, and all of the yellow that you see was parts of the tree that were getting scorched, and they had a bunch more leaves that just completely fell off because they were fried. But look at all the new growth on that peach tree and all the new growth on my Santa Rosa. Now, this is an area that's still getting a lot of sun right here. So I'm going to show you the difference in some of the leaves. Can you see this? Like, they're still burning on the tip, some of the new growth. But that doesn't happen to these peach trees because 50% of the sunlight is being blocked out. Something else that I'm noticing is that the tropicals that I have in my garden are going crazy. For example, this was the little Cotto avocado, and I don't know if I have footage, and you can see some of the areas that got super burnt during the summer months. And even though I tried putting shade cloth on, it would often move or be blown around, and so parts of the tree would still get scorched. But look at it now, it's being watered less, and all of the new foliage looks amazing. Look at that. This is so exciting for me. And then this is a dwarf Cavendish banana, which is growing a bunch of pups. I'm going to transplant some out into one of my tropical beds. But this plant, you can see the leaves. This is what it looked like before the shade cloth, and this is what it looks like after the shade cloth. That is a day and night difference. And then my roses are also going crazy, getting extremely tall. Oh my gosh, this is the James Galway rose from David Austin. And here's some more of my avocado trees. There's no more leaf burn or anything like that. They just look super, super happy to be here. The same goes for my loquat tree. Look at the new growth versus the old growth, what the old growth used to look like. This loquat tree has been a pretty slow grower for me up until the shade cloth went up, and all of a sudden it exploded with this crazy growth spurt, which feels like it came out of nowhere. I didn't even realize it had gotten this tall or that it had this many new leaves, because usually it kind of faded into the background because it always looked like this. But now look at the leaves, they're coming out even bigger too. And even on this side of the yard that still does get a little bit of sun, I'm seeing a huge change in some of these tropicals as well. This is a little soursop seedling, and look how crazy it's gotten. It was also starting to get scorched before the shade cloth went up, but now it's putting out really big leaves. And then this tree, you can see I need to prune this off, but it was pretty tall when I planted it, but the sun burnt it so badly that it started dying back quite a bit, and I wound up chopping it about a foot off the ground, making sure that it was still above the graft, and it started growing new foliage. So I think this is gonna make it, which makes me feel so relieved because this was a Christmas present from my sister. And I love every single plant in this garden, but whenever I get plants from my sister or family, I feel like they just mean way more to me. This is another avocado tree that was also getting scorched. Here's some of the leaves. But after the shade cloth went up, it started pushing out more growth. You can see some of the burning on there as well. So now it looks a lot happier, but I'm noticing that the leaves are coming out a lot smaller than they used to be. Very, very cool and interesting to see. I wonder if that's just the trees starting to adapt. So those are some of the tropicals that I have here. And also another tropical that's starting to go crazy again is my mango tree. This tree would get scorched during the summer months, but it still was going pretty strong. And after the shade cloth went up, it literally is now poking out everywhere. Let me come around and show you. And I've pruned it back a couple of times actually. You can see all this brand new growth, but I keep pruning it back and it just keeps getting bushier and bushier and thicker, which frankly makes me really, really happy. This is all brand new growth, all of this. It's getting pretty tall too. This year it produced one mango. Next year I hope it produces a couple more, and because the mango itself was so good. It's a variety called Fruit Punch, and this is the one and only mango tree that I have in the garden, but it's been so easy to grow here, even in a container, that I feel like I want to add a few more mangoes to my collection. I lost my atemoya, so if I don't replace it with another atemoya, I can use that container for a mango instead. We'll see. Also, my lime tree, you can see exploding with growth. And this is actually one of the original trees to the garden. The only thing is, when I first started gardening, I didn't know how to plant a tree. So I planted it super deep, probably all the way maybe up to here. And I kept it like that for over a year and always wondered why the tree looked sick. And once I started learning more about trees, I actually dug it up and had to cut off a bunch of girdling roots right here. And it took a while to recover, but now it's getting huge. Those are some of the branches up there. Same thing over here. This is a clementine tree that for a while I thought about just replacing with a new one because it didn't seem to improve long term. It looked a lot happier, but during the summer, it still didn't look its best. But now that it's a bit more protected from the elements, it is just growing like crazy. Something else that I'm noticing is the beans are loving it right now. Before they were scorching. I have a bunch of melons that didn't start forming until after the shade cloth went up. All of a sudden, there was flowers everywhere. The bees came back. I hadn't seen a bee in I don't even know how long, but the bees came back, they started pollinating everything, and now there's stuff growing again. And this is what it looks like from the entrance now. All of this is star jasmine, which was also in a sort of summer dormancy, and now look at it. It's huge, and in front of it, I have a bunch of blooming iceberg roses, which before were just scorching completely, and now they are full of brand new growth, and they have blooms coming out every single day. I cannot keep up with their growth now. And this is the biggest roselle plant, the tallest one I have ever grown. It is probably over 7 feet tall, and it is beautiful. Like, look at this entrance. This looks like something out of a fairy tale. Going up the shade structure, I have coral vine. I've gotten some questions asking for an update. This is the update. This is exactly what I had in mind. Look how whimsical that looks. I am obsessed with it, and this is the blooms. They are just the most gorgeous, petite, little dainty things. And then when they open up, they look like that. Aren't they stunning? And then I have the same thing mirrored over here. This plant, I kid you not, was probably stuck at about this height all summer long. And then the shade cloth went up, and then in a matter of weeks, it's almost all the way to the top. It has tendrils on it. The only thing is, I feel like the tendrils are so dainty that they can't really grab on because this is a little too wide for it. So what I've been doing is I come in every couple of days and I tie it back to keep it nice and tidy, and I love the way it looks. The only thing I do want to let you know is I love those vines, but you have to be careful about growing them depending on where you live, because they can be invasive in some areas. Here in Arizona, they're not invasive. They tend to grow really well here, but we don't have to worry about them because they're not invasive here. Also, I finally have cucumber plants. I'm going to show you another one that is getting a little bit more sun, but this one is so happy that I'm finally getting cucumbers other than Armenian cucumbers, because Armenian cucumbers are technically a melon, so that's why they grow really well. But I haven't had success growing actual cucumbers because the vines always fry. And I also have tomatoes that are starting to ripen up. This one looks a little bit funky. I don't know what variety it is, but they're starting to bloom and produce fruit, which is nuts to me. Also, my pepper tree absolutely loves it here. And the trellises are finally filling out the way what happened here? Oh no. This is why I like to trellis them. See, but this one's more orange and it hasn't fallen off yet. Okay, so the garden's producing so much that I literally have fruit just falling down, which is awesome. This trellis has a bunch of melons. I've already harvested several and I'm ready to harvest more. Also, look at all the squash forming. Look at all the squash. Because of the white shade cloth, it is not shaded in here at all. It literally just feels like a really nice day where it's sunny enough but not too sunny. Whereas with the black shade cloth, it would have gotten really dark underneath and my plants would be stretching. So the white shade cloth totally solved that problem for me. And then this bed is just full of dwarf tomatoes. And I don't think these have started producing yet, but they definitely have started flowering. Also, the Armenian cucumbers are going insane. I have so many cucumbers everywhere, and I can't seem to keep up with them. Whereas before, they were dying back. They were struggling in the heat, and now I keep seeing new growth popping up. Although I will say, with the weather a little cooler over here, I have seen a couple more pests as well. And then look, these are my other cucumbers, but you can see that these don't look as happy as the ones at the very beginning because these are getting a little bit more sun over here. My cucamelons are staying alive now and starting to climb up the trellis. My grapes are going crazy with their growth. They're already touching the top of my shade structure, but look, they're also making more grapes. I literally spent all morning Googling how many times a grapevine can produce in 1 year because I'm used to them producing once, but these grapes are coming out of nowhere. I already harvested them and I wasn't expecting to get anything else until next year. But I came out here today and started finding clusters of fruit again. And I know that I grabbed every single bunch when I came out here to harvest them last time. But look, more grapes. You can tell that these just formed because they're still bright green. And eventually they'll turn purple, but like they're just everywhere. Look at that. And it's not just the flame seedless grapes. These are doing it too. Look, they're flowering again. I'm in awe. I literally cannot believe the difference it made. And then look at my mom's roses. You can see all the old blooms that came on at once. And usually they wouldn't have bloomed until the weather cooled down a little bit more. So I'm expecting a whole other flush to come in like the next few weeks. Makes me feel so happy. And now they're finally starting to reach the top because they started growing through this crazy growth spurt as well. And you know what else is growing? Ube. Look at that. I planted it and I was like, I don't even know if it'll grow here. I don't know if our conditions are enough, but this is eventually going to become my tropical bed. So I figured I would plant it here and see if it made it. And if it didn't, I was going to try again next year. And I came out here the other day and at that point it was probably about this tall. It's been about 3 or 4 days. And look how tall it is now. It's growing like crazy. And I'm not doing anything. I have hundreds of plants, so it's hard to show you every single thing that has changed since putting up the shade cloth, but I can promise you it's made a world of a difference. On the contrary, this is a portion of my garden that doesn't have any shade cloth, and these are melon vines, loofah vines, and gourd vines. And look how fried everything is over here. Can you see that? Like, things are growing, but they're growing very slowly. Same thing happening over here. You can see some of my plants are still wilting a little bit. And this squash vine has been here for a while. And I feel like every day that I come out here, it's growing, but it's growing very slowly. But see, you can tell a huge difference. And then here underneath the black shade cloth, it definitely gets a little bit darker. Serendipity's back.